You've probably seen the classic image. A humble farmer setting down his plow, picking up a musket, and marching off to defend his home. It's a powerful, romantic idea, but how close is it to the truth? How did an army of farmers, blacksmiths, and merchants really prepare to face one of the most powerful military forces on Earth? Today, we're digging into the real training of the American settler soldier. Let's separate the myths from the reality. First, let's get one thing straight. The idea of the Minuteman, ready to fight at a moment's notice, wasn't just a catchy phrase. It was a necessity. In the colonies, threats could come from anywhere, at any time. This created a culture where military readiness was woven into the fabric of daily life. Long before the first shots were fired at Lexington and Concord, colonial militias were a well-established institution. So what did this training actually look like? It wasn't the grueling, systematic boot camp we think of today. Militia days were the primary form of training, usually held a few times a year. These were mandatory gatherings for most able-bodied men, typically between the ages of 16 and 60. But these weren't just about marching in straight lines. Imagine a town green, buzzing with activity. This was part drill, part social event. The day would start with roll call and an inspection of arms. Every man was expected to have his own musket, powder horn, and a supply of ammunition. Fines were levied for being unprepared, which shows just how seriously they took it. Then came the drills. The men would practice the manual of arms, the complex, multi-step process of loading and firing a flintlock musket. Commands would ring out, prime, load, make ready, present, fire. This wasn't easy. A smooth-bore musket was a clumsy, inaccurate weapon. In the heat of battle, with smoke, noise, and chaos, fumbling your reloading sequence could be fatal. The goal was to build muscle memory. To make the process so automatic, you could do it under extreme pressure. They aimed to fire 3 to 4 rounds a minute. While they might not have had the spit and polish precision of British regulars, they focused on practical effectiveness. But Militia Day wasn't just about standing in a line. They practiced forming ranks, marching in columns, and performing basic battlefield maneuvers. They'd learn how to wheel, advance, and retreat as a unit. This was crucial. An army isn't just a crowd of individuals with guns. It's a coordinated body that moves and fights as one. The officers, often elected from among their neighbors, would study military manuals, like Baron von Steuben's Blue Book, which later became the Bible of the Continental Army. Beyond the formal militia days, a lot of training was informal and self-directed. Life on the frontier was its own kind of training ground. Hunting was not a sport. It was a means of survival. This meant colonists were often expert marksmen. They understood windage, how to track prey, and how to move stealthily through difficult terrain. This ingrained skill with a firearm gave them a distinct advantage, while a British regular was trained for volley fire in open fields. A settler soldier was often more comfortable firing from behind a stone wall or a tree, using cover and concealment to his advantage. This style of fighting, often called Indian style, was learned from decades of frontier conflicts. This leads us to a key point: adaptability. The American forces were not a single uniform entity. You had the local militias, who were primarily for local defense. Then you had the state troops, and finally, the Continental Army, the professional, full-time soldiers led by George Washington. The training and experience varied wildly between these groups. A farmer in the Massachusetts militia had a very different life from a long-serving soldier in the Continental line. When the Continental Army was formed, the need for standardized, rigorous training became painfully obvious. The winter at Valley Forge is famous for its suffering, but it was also a transformative training camp. This is where Baron von Steuben, a Prussian military officer, truly made his mark. Steuben arrived to find an army in disarray. He was appalled by the lack of discipline and sanitation. But he didn't just impose orders from on high. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work. He started with a model company of 100 men and trained them personally. He was famous for his theatrical drill sergeant persona, swearing in a mix of German, French, and broken English. He simplified the complex European drill manuals, focusing on the essential movements needed for the American soldier. His system was brilliant. Once he trained that first company to perfection, he used them as instructors to train other companies. The knowledge spread like wildfire through the camp. He taught them not just how to march and fire, but how to use the bayonet effectively, turning a simple musket into a deadly spear. This was a huge confidence booster, giving them a way to counter the feared British bayonet charge. He also instilled a new sense of discipline and professionalism. He reorganized the camp layout, enforced sanitation rules, and created a system of accountability. By the time the army marched out of Valley Forge, it was a transformed force, more disciplined, more skilled, and more confident than ever before. So the training of the settler soldier was a multi-layered process. It started with a foundation of self-reliance and marksmanship, learned from frontier life. It was formalized in the local militia system, which fostered a sense of civic duty and basic military skill. And it was ultimately forged into a professional fighting force by the crucible of war and the tireless efforts of leaders like von Steuben. It wasn't a story of farmers instantly becoming elite soldiers. It was a story of adaptation, of learning on the job, and of building a new kind of army from the ground up. They combined the formal discipline of European warfare with the rugged individualism of the American frontier. That unique blend of farmer and fighter is what ultimately allowed them to stand against a global superpower and win their independence. The myth is compelling, but the reality is even more impressive. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into history. If you found this interesting, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content. We love exploring the real stories behind the legends. Let us know in the comments what other historical topics you'd like to see us cover. See you next time.